Hello, everyone. Please take your seat. And we are recording. We are broadcasting live to YouTube. So, welcome everyone to the September meeting of the Colorado Springs Astronomical Society. My name is Scott Donnell, the president, and with me in the room are Tom DeClue, our treasurer. I did not mess that up this time. Let's see it. Where's Fred Goodman back there as our secretary, Doug Cook, member at large, and Jim Earn. Is he here? He's our vice president, but I don't see him. He'll probably drop in a few minutes. And then two of our trustees, Floyd Glick and Matt Russell, right over here. So thank you and welcome. Hope you have a good time tonight. One of the first things we like to do is have more chairs. Need more chairs, right?
Grab a seat. Your family.
Yeah. Last month we had 94 chairs set up. I know there's plenty of room. We do have extra chairs. Please have a seat. So one of the first things I'd like to do is to ask if we have any visitors or new members. New meaning, in the last, this is the first meeting you've attended as a member, maybe the second one. So visitors and new members, raise your hand, please. Okay, let's start. I'm going to go right to left, so start with you, sir.
Okay.
You can stand up or you can sit down if you like. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in astronomy and why you're here.
I'm Jacob. This is Caitlin. We're together. We were at the last meeting. We joined over the summer. Barely made it out for Rocky Mountain Star Stare, just like the last couple nights when it started raining. So I've been into astronomy mostly just because I really like telescopes. I ground a mirror and built a telescope and decided I needed to figure out how to use it. And currently I'm trying to learn how to do machine work. Built a mirror-o-matic and I'm kind of playing around with that and having fun with that. At the same time, kind of just learning a little bit here and there as I go. So,
yeah, I was going to say, as far as machining, the amateur telescope, Floyd's does a lot of work in amateur telescope making, and Tom's very much into machining and milling.
Well, I also have the club's mirror grinding machine. We have a mirror grinding machine that'll handle up to 14-inch mirrors in my basement.
Mine's in pieces right now. I'm in the middle of it. So.
All right, well, welcome, and thanks for coming. So, he already introduced you. So, who's next? Yes, you.
Hi, my name is Chris Huckins, and I just joined last week. And I did go down to the gathering in Gardner over the weekend.
Cover sky, star stare.
Lots of clouds and a few stars. I don't have any equipment yet other than a pair of binoculars, but I'm hoping to talk to some of you folks on what might be appropriate. I'm interested in getting into the photography side, and I did get a chance to talk with Brian some when they were down there. He gave me some ideas, and I'm hoping to start attending his subgroup.
Oh, good. Yeah, which meets the next week, Tuesday, right after this meeting.
And originally from New Hampshire, been out in Colorado Springs for about 30 years. Worked for digital/compact/HP, and took early retirement from HP about 15 years ago. And I split my time now between here and Breckenridge.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, welcome. And the only place I know in New Hampshire is my sister-in-law's, where she came from, just Sunapee. Okay. You know where Sunapee is?
Yep, I'm from about 50 miles northeast of that.
Yeah. Well, okay, who else? Who's next? I know that I saw some hands back there. Okay, you?
Okay. I'm Vince. I rejoined actually because we moved away for about 4 years. Rejoined last year, back in Colorado Springs, chasing a job, and happy to be back.
Great, glad to have you. And sir?
I'm Derek. I was here last month. I've always had an interest in astronomy. Never had any idea of where to start, and so I'm kind of here to get that idea. So I'm a visitor. I ran into the society up at Glendo when my wife and I were up there to see the eclipse, and she said, "You ought to gotta go check those guys out. Okay. Here I am.
Hopefully you weren't one of the errant campers we had to shuffle up out of the area.
I was not one of them.
If you were in peace.
I don't think I'd be here in that case.
All right, well, welcome. And who else? Yes.
Hi, everybody. Name's Chris. I'm a new member, joined about a month ago. By day, I'm a correctional officer. Nighttime, I've always been interested in astronomy. I just got to know it over the summer finally after a 1 month period of waiting and holding off. Best decision so far. Just when I can, wherever I can, basically, for you find people. So. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And I think you'll find that coming to a group like this, whether you join or not, and you don't have to join to come to our meetings. There's a lot of good people here that have a lot of knowledge and very friendly. We're more than happy to help you out. So I think you'll find that we're pretty easygoing bunch of people. So I hope you find the same thing. Did I miss anyone? Is there anyone missed? Okay. Then so. That takes us into every month we like to have, oh, I forgot to mention that Fred has visitor cards. So if you identify yourself as a visitor, Fred during the break will likely come around and ask you to fill out a little short card. It's really just a way that we can kind of circle back with you after the meeting and see how we did and, see if you're, if there's any questions we can answer for you. So Fred's got that. He'll see you on the break.
And the attendance sheet's still in the back if you haven't signed it.
Right, so we do have an attendance sheet floating around. It's actually on that back table. And please sign in. Kind of helps. Why do we do that? I guess it helps us keep account of just the number. So we know how many chairs I should be setting up. I think that's why we do it. So that takes us up to the What's Up in the Night Sky presentation. This is every month we have our Director of Outreach, Mr. Dave Warner, get up. And after all, what is astronomy about? Looking up at the night sky. And so Dave's going to tell us a little bit about what's up. And don't forget to turn off the light and read your presentation.
All right. Uh-oh. Hopefully I can read it. Okay. With the lights off, that helps out. I'm Dave Warner. Again, as he said, I'm Director of Outreach with the Colorado Springs Astronomical Society. And I'm going to do our monthly What's Up for October 2017. So next slide, please. So first of all, what do we have for coming up that's left in September to see? Well, tonight, a little cloudy to see it, but the moon and Saturn are in conjunction. They're about 3 degrees apart. So if there's some spots in the clouds, you can go look up there and have a relation of where the moon, and you can see where Saturn is. If you haven't seen that, pretty cool to see. Next slide. Then what is there to see in October? Well, there's quite a few things, and I'll try to go through them all. There's the conjunction of Neptune and the moon. So a common question is, where is Neptune so that I can go find it? Good chance that when you have the moon nearby, it makes it a lot easier to go find those harder to find objects in the sky. It's about a little less than a degree, 0.7 degrees away. And I'll have a map to kind of show where to look for that. Again, as I said, when you see the moon on October 3rd, it's going to be in close proximity to Neptune. On October 5th is a conjunction of Venus and Mars. That's in the morning. That's Mars is finally coming out from being behind the sun, and it's not very far away from the sun. So just shortly before sunrise, there'll be a conjunction of Venus and Mars. You can look; it's only 0.2 degrees. There's actually an occultation in different parts of the country or in the world, but not for us. So just a real close, super close conjunction of Venus and Mars to see. Not hard to find when you can find Venus being as bright as it is in the morning skies. It's going to get moved back down towards the sun over the next couple of months, and then pretty soon it'll be an evening object for us a few months hence. So look forward to that as being an object for us to look in outreach. On October 8th is the Draconids meteor shower. So over October, we have a couple of different meteor showers. We have the one on the 8th of October, and then later we'll have the Orionids. So look towards the constellation Draco, and you'll be able to see some of these meteors. We saw some while we were down there at Starry Meadows. These ones have long durations where they take a while to peak and then take a while to drag off. So you'll see some meteors every night that you're out there observing. Then October 15th, we have Regulus is actually occulted by the moon. It's in the morning. Leo's a morning constellation right now, so you have to get up early on the 15th to go see that. But you'll see that the moon blocking off Regulus. If you've not seen that through a telescope on any star being occulted by the moon, it's pretty a neat deal. Go put your telescope up on that star and watch it, and it'll just blip away and disappear behind the moon. And so, fun thing to look at on October 15th. Regulus being a star in the constellation Leo, as I mentioned. On October 15th, there's actually a comet that's about 7.6 in magnitude, bright enough for a lot of our telescopes, if people that have telescopes. And that's, I forget where it's at, but I have a graphic to show that here in a minute. It's going across underneath Perseus, as I recall. It'll be at its brightest on October 16th. So we'll take a look at that here in a second. Next slide. On October 17th, another conjunction. Mars and the moon in the morning again, 1.8 degrees. Conjunction of Venus and the moon at 2 degrees on October 18th. And then we'll have the Uranus in opposition. It's in the constellation Pisces. I'll show a graphic of that where that's at to locate it. It's cool to look at those planets. They're not readily visible with the naked eye, but we can go and look at those objects now. It's coming to be a nighttime object that we can look at on when we're out there looking in the evening time after dark. And so we'll show you where to find that. On October 24th is the Orionid meteor shower. You look towards the Orion constellation, in between Orion and off to the left-hand side, and that's where the peak is at, where the radiant of that meteor shower is at. And that's that can have some pretty neat meteors going across the sky. And it's in conjunction with within a few days of the new moon. So you won't have the moon obscuring the view of some of those dimmer meteors streaking across the sky. So good time to get out and go look at meteors at the end of October. And then we have Neptune is in Aquarius, is the constellation that it is in. So let's go on, and I'll have some graphics here in a minute. Just a couple of key deep space objects to observe. The Dumbbell Nebula is high up in the sky. The double star Alberia with this beautiful orange and blue star colors. The Andromeda galaxies are high up in the sky for observing, and astrophotography as well. And then the Veil Nebula. Actually, when we were at Starry Meadows, the Veil Nebula was absolutely phenomenal on our clear nights that we had. And then there's actually another one that I happened to cross the other night. I hadn't really looked at it before. Go check it out. It's over in Cassiopeia. Is the ET cluster. It's a little cluster of stars that when you look at this thing, it looks like the ET from the movie. It's a pretty neat little cluster to go look for and find, and take a look at that. Nice time of year to look for it. Next slide. So so here's where Uranus isn't moving a whole lot. You know, neither is Neptune because of their orbit. So you can look in Pisces, and you can use your star maps to look on where this triangle of stars is, and then look for that nice greenish orb in the sky to find. And so that'll give you an idea where that's at. You can look at your star maps that you have to find more details. Next slide, and then we have Neptune. Oh, and then just to kind of give you a big sight picture. This is Pisces over here, so you have Uranus over here, and then Neptune is right down here in Aquarius. The next slide will get a closer up view of. So if you're not familiar with the constellations, kind of give you a bigger view, and then we'll close it in. Further, you got the square of Pegasus up above there, and then down below is Aquarius. You can follow that down. Next slide, and it'll take you that close-up view of where that's going to be in the around October. Is going to be right in here, so not very far from that star right there. So I think that's it. Next slide, please. Oh, and then that comet that I mentioned, that comet that's coming up. This is actually, it's the whole time frame of here we're at October. It's under Taurus, under Perseus, going up through what is it, Camelopardrius? I would say the camel. That's all I know. So so it's going to be up there in the nighttime sky for quite a while for you to go try to find that. As a challenge object, go find that comet and go check it out. See see what it looks like. I don't know much more about it as far as what its tail looks like or what color it is, if it's green or whatever. So, but there is a comet in the sky for you to go take a look at.
Okay.
Mhm.
We looked at that.
Oh, did you?
September skies, and it's not very remarkable. It's pretty faint.
Pretty faint. Okay. So maybe we'll have an outburst if we keep watching it, keep an eye on it. Or you've got there's star maps that are out there. This one was from a Stellar Navigator, where I got this from online. So they're all available online for you to take a look at. Next slide. I think that's it for what's up for October. So thank you.
Camelopardalis.
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 Yeah, I haven't practiced that. What camel?
Okay, so that takes us to observing reports. And we just had September Sky Star Stare. I guess with a little bit of.
We saw a comet.
Yeah.
All right.
Veiled.
We'll come back to the front. So who would have observing reports that they'd like to contribute, whether you went to September Sky Star Stare or not? So, anyone out there? Joe.
I observed the inside of an RV while staying dry on a very, very wet night. Thank you.
Well, I guess that counts. All right. Bob? Bob?
I tracked Pluto for a couple of nights, Wednesday and Thursday, Friday too. And I tried observing something I hadn't seen before, which was Einstein's Cross, which is up in Pisces or one of the P's. And the scene wasn't quite going to support it. It was just a little bit fuzzy and blurred together.
So, what is Einstein's Cross?
Einstein's Cross is the picture, the blown up pictures, it looks like 5 little stars all grouped real close together. And the center one is a galaxy, and the 4 around it are a galaxy behind it that's being lensed by the front galaxy into 4 points.
Any idea what magnitude, visual magnitude that would be?
I think it was 15 something.
15.
So it was dim. And I put a whole bunch of power on it. Still couldn't split it out.
Pretty cool.
But it was fun to try.
Very nice. And what magnitude was Pluto? 14?
14 something, yeah. It was pretty dim too. Although it was pretty clear nights. So it was one night, the Friday night, you had to use averted vision to get it. This is a 20 inch. And then I also tracked down 4 or 5 of the galaxy clusters. That was kind of fun to get back to. Alan had done that a lot. Years past.
Cool.
And this year.
All right. Anyone else? Oh, Al? Sorry, no. Al.
I was going to say first, the folks that have not been to September Skies, which is the name of the star party that we put on in September, you ought to try to make an effort to come down there. I heard quite a few comments this year that said that this was the best they had seen, the best skies they'd had all year. Not just there, but the best skies that they'd had all year. So I'm
Just
just
not on Saturday.
not
Friday, Thursday were great.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Friday was good if you were still up at 11 to 3. Wednesday and Thursday were both great nights. Like Bob said, we did lots of galaxies. I actually managed to eke out all 5 in Stefan's quintet. And got confused on a couple others that were around up there, numbers and sizes and stuff, but that doesn't matter. What else did we look at? We looked at doubles and the veil and the moon. We tried to get another video like we'd done a couple of years ago of the moon set. That first night when all we had was like 2%. That small sliver, 2 or 3%. And if you can catch that in binoculars or even use your telescope and catch it setting on the far side, and then you got Earthshine on the moon itself. That's something you'll remember. So, it was a great nights.
Okay.
And the burgers were good too.
That was on Saturday.
Yeah.
Doug?
I was down at September Skies on Thursday night. Totally agree with Al that the sky was fantastic. We had kind of a dearth of good skies here in the city for months, it seems. So that was good to see. I looked at about 20 Messier objects. I've just got a modest 8-inch Dobsonian, and the prettiest I think was M31 with a very wide angle 38 millimeter 70-degree field of view on M31 and its companion galaxies. It was a beautiful sight. The thing that was most remarkable the whole night was at about 5 a.m. got the Milky Way, but then there was this other glow coming up from the horizon. I said, I've never seen that before. It was the zodiac light,
Oh, yeah.
which it blew me away. So that was worth the ticket.
And it's about the right time of the year for that too.
Yeah,
It's September, March, and
morning skies.
Yeah.
Fall.
September in the eastern horizon, morning.
Yeah, equinox time.
I forgot to mention, there were literally dozens of good meteorite shooters, including one that just lit up the ground like somebody just pulled in.
Well, it was a kind of a double fireball. It came down and fireballed, and then another one came off of that fireball. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can see if you just keep looking up. Right? All right, anyone else? Okay, well, I personally apologize for the dearth of clear skies and bad weather here in Colorado Springs.
What'd you buy? What'd you buy?
What did you buy? I didn't buy any.
Why are you apologizing?
I don't know. I couldn't think of anything else to say. Okay, well, if there's no other observing reports, then before we go into the outreach report, I would like to make a presentation. So one of the things that members do in CSAS is participate in the Astronomical League's Observing Award Program. And in fact, we've got an extra copy of the reflector here, and that comes out once a month. And in the back of it is a listing of all the recipients of all the various observing awards. And you can actually go out to the website and get details of the program, but it's a pretty neat thing to do. And so one of our members here has accomplished the requirements for one of the observing programs. So let me read the letter that came in to this. This was the 2 in the View Observing Award. So 2 in the View is having 2 objects in the eyepiece at one time. So the letter says, Dear Al, congratulations on completing the requirements for the 2 in the View Observing Program certificate and pin. So we got a certificate and a pin to go with it. Quite an accomplishment. Many of these objects are challenging due to a large separation and low magnitude. Hopefully this unusual observing program has given you a new observing perspective, and you will be inspired to keep imaging additional multiple deep sky objects. Clear Skies, Bob Scott, 2 in the View Program Coordinator. So with that, I would like you to step up to the front, please. Everyone wants to take pictures, now's the time. So here's the certificate of completion. It was presented to Mr. Al Shalafi, Colorado Springs Astronaut Society, for successfully observing over 100 grouped objects, awarded on this August 2nd, 2017, signed by Bob as well as John, the Astronomical League president. And so I'd like to present you with your certificate and the cool lapel pin that goes with it.
Very cool. Can I say something about this?
Yes, absolutely.
In case you don't, and I'm sure most people don't, 2 in the View is not just 2. It ranges anywhere from 2 to maybe a half dozen not always two galaxies or two double stars. It could be an assortment of objects in the sky, and a lot of them were, and some of them were pretty cool. I can remember one that was actually a globular cluster inside of an open cluster. And that just happened to stick in my mind. I did a couple of things different on this, and I got Bob's approval on this before I started, because I thought, well, hey, while I'm doing this, let's try a couple of things different. And one of them was I used my phone, you know, which phones these days, smartphones have voice recording capabilities. So rather than writing my observations down, I recorded them by voice, which was quite interesting later, especially the ones, you know, at 3 o'clock in the morning. To go back and try to decipher what it had recorded and change in the text could get quite comical at times. The other thing that I did with his approval, and I got one here, I hope, was, this will give you some idea if you can see this from back there, kind of sort of. I did all of my sketches in my phone as well. And so all the sketches were digital instead of doing them on paper. And this required a bit of a learning curve initially to find endpoints that could give me something that looked like a galaxy, or, you know, open clusters are not two galaxies, it's a bunch of dots, right? But to get some shading in the galaxies took a bit of work. But once I got it going, then honestly, I hate sketching. I am not an artist. If I took all the classes in the world, I still wouldn't be an artist. So
You have trouble with stick figures?
that too, yeah. E.T. I might be able to handle. I don't know. But anyway, it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope some more people get excited about the Astronomy League Awards that Tom had this for us. Thank you.
Okay, so next up is Dave Warner with the outreach report, and he just walked out of the room. So let me bypass that just for a minute and ask Tom DeClue, our RMSS director, to give us an update on RMSS.
Okay, so no treasury report this month. We just have money. No worries. Plenty of it. Okay, so as far as RMSS goes for 2018, I volunteered and was accepted to be the director for 2018 in case you hadn't heard. So I'm taking it over from Bruce and Hal. By the way, we're having elections a little bit later on tonight because I'll be stepping down as treasurer so that I can devote the time this takes to do this. One of the first things we do each year is decide on a theme. And as you know, I sent out some emails and we posted stuff on Facebook soliciting and requesting people to provide their inputs if they would like to do so. We like to extend it out to the membership to let them provide inputs for themes. At this point, we have I got 4 inputs. A couple of people suggested something that's based around the James Webb Space Telescope. As you know, that is going to launch this in 2018. However, right now I think the launch date is in October. I mean, that's going to be a big deal when it goes up. It's got that telescope is like 4 times the size of Hubble. I mean, it's massive. Very impressive. So a couple people brought that up as an idea. Another idea is that, by the way, the week of RMSS, that's in June, is also the week that Saturn comes to opposition. So Saturn's going to be, and of course, for those who may not be familiar with what the term opposition is, Saturn and Earth and Sun are all lined up, which means Saturn rises at sunset and sets at sunrise. So it's up all night. Midnight, it's directly overhead at its highest point. Saturn's at opposition that week, so we're thinking Saturn at opposition. That is potentially be a theme. Another one, someone's not here tonight, said, well, they like the idea of maybe some sort of a retro science fiction theme maybe like something to do with Star Trek or something like that. That came up, and then Vicky just do something out like, gee, I'm not hearing many ideas. Why don't we just go with something simple like enjoy the view? Enjoy the view. So we basically have four ideas for next year's four ideas for next year's RMSS.
These are
Sorry, guys. So let me run by them again. What I want to do is, I'm stepping down. What I want to do is get a show of hands and see if we can get, and choose something tonight, a theme, and then next month people would come in with drawings, ideas, a theme for logos and a drawing or design work that we would then go through and select. So something based on James Webb Space Telescope. I'm thinking though that might be better for the year after because it won't even launch until afterwards.
Maybe.
And if it slips, you know, or if something bad.
Certainly won't be in operation for a while.
Yeah. So maybe that's another year later. Saturn at opposition, something with this Saturn theme. I'm getting hands already.
Saturn all night long.
Okay. That's more than half right there, so I think that's already it does. Enjoy the view, kind of simplistic. Saturn maybe we can do a lot with Saturn. Like let's just stand up and turn around.
Turn around.
Yeah, there you go. See? I have the same T-shirt. It's a beautiful picture of Saturn. I could do the same thing, but
I found this flipping through one of the books.
Oh, nice. See that's the picture that my tattoo is based on.
You can show us that.
So and then the retro science theme, a Star Trek based or something like that. A couple people think that might be
Stars.
And if anybody wanted to bring up a theme here that didn't get around to submitting it, anybody have any ideas? It sounds to me like Saturn is the. Let's do this again. Hands up for James Webb Space Telescope. Hands up for Saturn. Okay, let's just leave it at that. Saturn is the theme for 2018 RMSS. Great. So next month, so be thinking about that. Think about a logo to go with like Saturn the Greatest or the ring planet. Some kind of a logo and a design, and we will use that for T-shirts and things along those lines. Okay, it'll go on our webpage, all the rest of it. Great. So that was the key thing I wanted to talk about for RMSS for 2018. We've got a lot to do between now and then. We already have, by the way, some commitments for speakers. One of them is the what's his name? How many people have the app Sky Safari? Yeah. The author of that will be speaking. He's spoken at RMSS before. He lives in, I want to say, in Mexico. He was up at. I ran into him up at Glendale. Well, no, up at Casper. I went up Saturday afternoon to the Astronomical League convention and ran into him. He was running his booth up there. So. And we're also looking at, and I also got some interest. I did talk to people up there that had booths, smaller ones that had neat stuff. And I said, hey, we have a star party. Would you like to come to RMSS in June in Colorado, and one of the most scenic sites you could possibly go to? And so I've got some interest in some other vendors that might want to come, besides some that you already know will be coming. So we're drumming up vendor support, things like that. I think that's my report for now.
Thank you.
Questions, anybody? Thanks.
All right. Now, Mr. Dave Warner for the outreach report. Take it away, Dave.
Or the outreach report, not the, we'll have to work on fixing that color. So just I need the calendar up, but.
Go ahead and show off the lights so we can see.
Oh, well, no, it's not this anyways, but it's a calendar.
Just going to the calendar.
First of all, we've done a lot of outreach this last month before September Sky Star Stare. We were up at Florissant Fossil Beds. I was actually sick those couple of days. Palmer Park, and then we made it up Mueller Park Star Party. We had we had good events on each of those nights. And then on the Pikes Peak Community College Centennial Campus, they did an outreach out there to help out the community college. And then Bruce and I went up to the top of, up above the Broadmoor. They've got a place up there almost this high up as the top of Cheyenne Mountain called Cloud Camp. And we did an outreach for Sequoia Capital Financial Group up there. And long hours, we had it takes 45 minutes to get up there from the Broadmoor and 45 minutes to get back down. And we were there from until 11 o'clock at night. So it was a long night, but it was we get up above the light pollution, you can see the Milky Way even right here in town. So that was pretty cool to get up there. And we were looking when we didn't have a whole lot of people coming and looking through our telescopes for the $500 that we got to go into our club coffers, which is nice. But we were looking down, Bruce and I were looking down on the town and looking at all the light pollution, where the bright lights were, so that we can go maybe talk to these people about getting their lights turned down or turned away from shining up into the sky when they don't need to be. This coming up in the next couple of days, I got some really important stuff. I need some help from y'all if you can help out with outreach. On the 28th, it doesn't look too good for the weather right now on Thursday, but we're going to be at Peyton High School doing a star party. First time we've been out there. We'll be out on their football field doing a star party for that portion of our town that we haven't done a whole lot out there out east. And then at the same time, we've got the Pikes Peak Community College down in the downtown. There's a little park down there that they set up to support their the downtown campus. And doing the star party there. Nice little, downtown park there. You can see on the Google Maps on the calendar. You click on that, it'll show you where that is. You can go and support either of those events.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
On the Peyton High School event, if it is clouded out, will you still have an indoor activity or?
That's going to be up to the originator. Tom Cole is the teacher that set that up. I said, just let me know so that I can post on the forums and on our email blast that I've got for outreach folks to let people know what we're going to do. Right now, I don't know what their plan is. I don't think that they have anything to set up inside a gymnasium. But I told them, if you still want to have it, even if it's cloudy, we can come out and talk about the stars and introduce the kids to what we do in outreach. And I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But right now, I don't know. But as soon as I find out, I will post it, updates on the calendar as well as in the forums. Not everybody can get into the forums. Non-members can't. But you'll see it on the calendar. I'll post it there. Now, on the Saturday, from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., we have Astronomy Day. This is kind of the first time that we've really done, at least in a long time, that we've done an Astronomy Day event. And Garden of the Gods has been very gracious to allow us to use their venue to have an activity all day long, or 3 to 10 anyway, that is totally dedicated to doing astronomy outreach. That's Astronomy Day at Garden of the Gods Visitor Center. We'll be at the Visitor Center starting at 3. We'll have solar telescopes. I need help. If you got solar telescopes, come out and support it. We're going to do some activities, some different things like meteor crater demonstrations and UV bead making. If I get more people to come help me out in the daytime for doing different activities, I've got a couple of things that you can help me out with. And then some of it is just handing out free stuff from NASA and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I've got a whole box of goodies to give away to people that come in and participate in Astronomy Day. And we'll do that in the 3 to 4:30 time frame. We just have that short time frame in the daytime. Then at 5:30, Bruce is going to be giving a talk on archaeoastronomy. Then from 7 o'clock until 10 o'clock, we'll be doing a nighttime star party. So again, if you can come out, whether that's a daytime with your solar telescopes or just helping me out with the activities, or you can come from 7 to 10 p.m. and support, bringing up a telescope and showing the nighttime skies, we could sure use the help. We'll actually have the MESO mobile observatory. We'll be there so people can come and walk through that mobile observatory and see what they're doing and what their plans are for science. And I think they're going to talk a little bit about what they did in the solar eclipse.
Will you be out amongst the rocks for 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. or will you be at the visitor center building?
We'll be at the visitor center for all of these activities.
Okay, thanks.
So easy, good question, and so everybody can find us. We're going to be at the visitor center, set up, and we'll have Stephen Rigel is going to be coming out with his meteorite collection and have that set out and talking to everybody about the different meteorites that he has and in his collection of meteorites. So we'll have a bunch of different activities. If you have an idea for an activity, you want to come help out, you want to just hand out brochures, you want to help with telescopes, we could sure use the help. But we want to make this successful, and maybe we'll see about building on this and doing it again in the spring and the fall next year as well. Let's go real quick to October. We start to slow down as the weather starts to turn winter time and gets colder. We have Brian is having his observatory open house on the 10th of October. That happens to be when we already had another event at Coronado High School. That's only for the high school there at Coronado. Don't have a lot more information on it where we're setting up for that yet, but Coronado High School's teacher out there is was very excited to have us come and do a star party with them. So that's where I'll be. And actually, Brian's event is at 5:30, so you can do that and then come out to the star party at Coronado High School. It's right in the same area. Then we have Cool Science Festival on the 14th of October. We're set up. We're going to be down where the statue of the Puma is, right? Puma, El Puma Center. We're going to be down there where everybody can walk by. Have about 500 people, that'll walk through. We'll have our solar telescope set up and some other solar displays. And we'll do more of some activities related to the sun for people to do with us there at Cool Science. So if you have solar telescopes or just want to hand out brochures and help us out, you can come support us at the Cool Science Festival. More details to follow on that. And then we have our last star party of the year in October 21st there. With Florissant Fossil Beds the night before. If you haven't been to Florissant Fossil Beds, you go see the nice skies there, dark skies up there, great place to go set up your telescopes and just enjoy the view. And you might have some people coming by and want to see what you're looking at, and you can do that too. And then we have, after our monthly meeting next month, we'll have on the 27th of October is Horizon Middle School. And we just set up, that's over by off of Peterson and Constitution, Palmer Park area, over by pretty close to Peterson Air Force Base. There's a little middle school over there, and we're just doing a star party right out in their field that they have, and that's again supporting that middle school and that local community, kind of a neighborhood star party, if you will, and that's a lot of fun to do. So that's what we have for outreach for this month. So if you're able to come support us, we sure would love to have you, and we'll talk to you more about outreach in just a minute.
It's kind of phenomenal the amount of effort this guy puts in on outreach. He still forgets the lights.
And I forget the lights.
Just remember,
More coffee.
just Dave, just remember the Camel Party.
Camel party. So
So
you're
you're gonna test
going to
next
practice.
Okay, so let's see. Star Meadows property. Everything you want to mention, you want me to just kind of roll over the few things we've been working on.
Go right ahead.
So, kind of two things going on. The first one is the observatory project. Tom Zimmerman and I have been kind of continuing that effort. Where are you, Tom? I lost track. There you are. And last Friday, Tom and I, my brother, went down there to do the work on some more. Matt Russell joined us, and so we made a little bit more further progress. Not as much as we would have liked to hope, but that deck is like flat and plumb and true, and it's perfect. So it's an awesome deck. So Tom and I are talking about going down either this Friday if weather permits, or ultimately Tuesday, and we're just going to continue to work down there and probably do a little bit more concrete work. And so it's coming along. It's coming along. We didn't get it ready in time for September Star Stairs, but we want to make sure we do it right. No mistakes. Al, so we've also been looking, well, after the observatory, since the observatory is really well underway, what next? What's the next project? And the next project that we're looking at is getting electricity on site. And so Al and Matt were during September Skies, we're talking to our neighbors and looking at different options. So if you want us to kind of summarize anything there, please do.
Hopefully by the next meeting in October, I hope to have what I would call fairly firm pricing for our choice of either landline electricity, which is provided by San Isabel Electric Association.
Correct.
Or perhaps going solar. And I think I'll start up a discussion thread on our forum, maybe get something going on the forum. So if you have any ideas or suggestions on either one of those or preferences, now is the time to let us know, because by the next meeting with pricing in hand, I hope to have the club decide on which direction we want to go, whether it's electricity, which is going to be really expensive, or solar, which is half as expensive, still expensive, and we'll go from there.
Okay. And it's something we do want to involve the club in as a whole, because it is a fairly major expense and major improvement at Star Meadows. Doug?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't make the board meeting where I had some information on that, but I did contact San Isabel Electric. I said, how much would it cost to run electricity half a mile? I don't know how far a run would be, but the guy was accommodating with a number. You'd have to set 9 poles to run the electricity 9 miles, a transformer. That's $18,000.
To go how far?
Half a mile.
Okay.
I don't know if that's in the ballpark.
That's in the ballpark.
And a ballpark number for solar for a 5 kilowatt system with batteries for storage is $12,000.
That's in the ballpark. Yeah. And on the landline electricity, all you're talking about is getting the electric to the site. Then we have to put in a
Service.
service box.
Yeah.
Panel.
Yeah.
And the hookup seats are.
Yeah.
One of the lines ain't nothing, it's the hookup fees that are killing. And would they allow you to go underground instead of overhead?
You don't want to do that. They would,
It
you
would
can do
for
it if
tons.
you want to, but it's probably 3 times the cost.
So needless to say, there are pros and cons to each approach. And before you get off this, when is the next meeting of the Starry Meadows Development Committee and where? And same question to Tom DeClue for the RMSS committee. I asked them both because in the past we've had the 2 meetings combined on the same date and place.
Yep.
And so do we have anything?
I think at this point it's still to be determined.
Yeah.
Okay, so just kind of watch the forums and watch the calendar
Yeah,
for
so
updates on that.
Al and I need to get together and
Okay.
find a place and a date, come up with some sort of,
Right.
something that works for everybody.
So look for that, and that's certainly your opportunity to, have an influence or have a say in which direction we go, attend the meeting. And that's where we have our discussions about the pros and cons of each approach. So, just look for that on the calendar and forums. Anything else on that?
Other than we'll get a meeting scheduled before the next regular CSAS.
All right. The next thing we would have would be the astrophotography special interest group, but I don't see Brian here. So we're going to take a pass on that. And then the next one after that would be public relations, which is George White. Is he still in England?
I think so.
Yeah, so. And then Stephen, as webmaster, anything you want to contribute? Have you been making progress on the update to our lovely CSAS website, much like what you did for the RMSS?
Yes, some. So updates are coming to modernize, make things faster, easier to find.
So I really tasked Stephen in 2 directions. Priority 1 is fix the things that are really problematic with our current website. Like we've got a whole bunch. Long story short, we've got a bunch of plugins in WordPress that are just like crashing into each other. And it's a tangled web. Steve's been spending a lot of time going through it, trying to sort through that. That's really the first priority. Then the second priority following that is to then come up with a redesign. We do have a kind of design template, so we kind of know what the look and feel is going to look like. But at some point soon, or the next few months or whenever, probably when the next president takes office, then hopefully we'll have a new CSAS. So this is what Rocky Mountain Star Stair look like. Much more of a modern look and feel, and very similar kind of look and feel for our CSAS webpage. It's kind of what we're going for. Just to give you an idea. All right, with that, I would like to, now basically it's time to have our annual, this is our September's our annual business meeting. And so this is where we do the annual elections of officers. And then following that, we're going to have about a 15 minute or so break. And then we're going to have a 30-minute presentation by Dave Warner on more stuff you want to know about, basically how to get involved with outreach. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Floyd Glick. Floyd, there you go. As one of our two trustees, and there's a reason why I'm only having Floyd as the trustee take over from this point. So Floyd, I turn it over to you to run the election.
This time I'd like the candidates to come up on stage.
Yeah.
Does that mean that we're continuing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Next to the license.
I'm opposed. My God.
The license.
Yeah, this time you do right.
Actually, up on the stage, please.
I wish short people can see you too. All right, so Matt is running for president.
Unopposed.
Unopposed. And,
Jim, running for vice president, unopposed. I welcome any opposition.
Fred, for secretary, pardon me, unopposed.
Jill, treasurer, still unopposed, but again, be most welcome.
So these four folks are duly elected. Okay. All right. So, thank you. Now we have wait.
Vote for me.
Not quite done. We still have one contested.
Gotta stir the pot a little bit.
Right? So these two gentlemen are member at large candidates. Okay. So I have ballots here.
Yeah. It's like origami.
So
It'll be a rabbit.
take a ballot and pass it down. So would you like to say a few words, Doug, for your campaign?
For my campaign, well, I have been a member at large for the past year and appreciates the opportunity. As far as club activities, I've enjoyed getting involved in outreach with Dave, and I'm here to serve as needed.
Thank you. Dave, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. I've been a club member since 2011. Haven't been a member of the board yet, and I felt that being director of outreach, that it was time for me to get more engaged and more involved with the club as a member of the board, to have those conversations of where we're going and where we're moving forward in relation to how we're doing what we do as Colorado Springs Astronomical Society. Vote for me.
Well, thank you. So you've heard the candidates. You can make a choice by selecting the name off your ballot that you want to vote for, and then we'll pass the hat, and you can put your vote in. Have you washed the hat? No. But I'm the only one that's gonna hold it, so. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good luck.
So you want us to tear?
Yeah.
Tear off the name that you want. And give it to me.
Did you get a ballot? You gotta get your ideas.
You already got one. Thanks.
You can vote twice, vote off.
I can look the other way.
Vote off.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just throw your full ballot in there.
You can just hold it. It's okay, we'll just throw them at you. It's all right.
By the way, one of the reasons we take attendance is so we know whether or not we have a quorum. I think we have. It's, what happens when you tell them that they or who have attended the past 2 months? They gotta keep the number. Yeah. I know the Floyd knows. Right.
I'll count the ballots and after the break, we'll know who our next member is.
Right. Okay. Hey, Scott, before we go. Yes. I haven't dismissed you yet. I have just recently acquired an 80mm refractor. You're the reason.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it was a donation to the club.
It doesn't matter.
It was a donation to the club.
Okay.
And it's an old one. It's like a 1970 model with an equatorial mount. Okay, well, enjoy that, because that's yours. That still belongs to the club. No, hold on. So I issued a moratorium on donations to the club, pending, basically, any donations need to be reviewed. Okay. By the board. And we basically have had a lot of things, a lot of telescope and stuff, mostly telescopes that are like something you basically use as a doorstop. I hate to say it, but and we're just not in a position to just take on people's old stuff. So we can point them to Astromart, we can point them to Goodwill, but only in those cases, like when Carl Tubbs asked if he could donate his 60-inch Dobsonian, and we checked it out. I think Fred, you went with me on that, right? And we're like, that's a good scope. But so just be wary about donations. We're not automatically taking donations. We're being very selective about that because we just don't have space. Yeah.
Please, no more Skype.
Is it?
Good job.
It would be after.
Okay,
Because,
everything is there.
It's all good. Because there might be, when I'm working with the different schools, there might be some high schools or these astronomy clubs in the schools that might be able to benefit this. I'll tell you what, I've been to a bunch of schools in this town and they got crappy telescopes. So if there's something that we can give them that's better than what they got, let's get it. Let's get it.
But we're not going to take like a donation to give our schools, not the equipment.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, right.
So if before you accept something as a donation, be really kind of selective about it. So not saying anything wrong or anything, but just so everybody knows.
We just want to make sure that it's something that's usable.
The other thing I'd like to bring up is, the observatory on the start. I have probably 7 or 8 pieces of terrazzo marble, like 18 inches square, and I'd like to find somebody probably that's in the club that I can get Old English lettering for cardinal points.
Oh, okay.
So I could take, I could use it to this one. All right, I'll defer to Al Shalafi as the head of the Starry Meadows Development Committee to make decisions on that kind of thing as well. So, because we do have a site master plan in place. We do have all new development items require a signed project plan. So we've got a method for implementing changes to Starry Meadows. Floyd, you're back, you're already coming, right? Just give me 1 second. So, so Floyd's gonna announce the results of the election. And so what I understand is that on the uncontested side, the current vice president, secretary, continue on as they have been. And then we had 2 uncontested positions, that would be treasurer, Jill, and the new president, Matt Russell. And they will assume the duties of their new office starting 1 January. So it doesn't take effect tonight, as much as you might want it to. Sorry, stuck with me. It does take effect 1 January. And then the same goes for the individual that is selected for the member at large. So let's go ahead and turn the election results over to Floyd.
Dave Warner is our new member of ours.
Okay, and with that, let's check the time. How are we doing here? 7:30, 7:20. Oh, we're actually a little bit ahead of time here. So
I can use your time.
you can use time. So, let's go ahead and take a break and come back at 7:45. 7:45. Okay, so temporarily adjourned. We'll be back. 7:45.
If you haven't signed to attend
Yeah. 3 o'clock. It's like I appreciate
All right. So everybody, okay, a couple quick things, and I'll turn Dave loose on you. 3 things. One, have a spare reflector magazine that
For a newbie, maybe?
What's that?
Usually for a newbie.
Usually for a new person. So if you're new visiting, come up after the meeting and snatch that before somebody else does. Also, we've got some more of our CSAS business cards up here, if you'd like a few of those. And then Vicki has got a box of some library materials here. Vicki, substitute for Vanna White tonight. With a box of pretty cool books there. So see her after the meeting if you're interested. Take a look at those.
One of many.
One of many boxes.
Yeah. Well, I didn't bring them all. I just figured I could bring one at a time.
Oh, librarian, right?
What's that? She's our librarian.
Librarian, disposing of some library.
And with that, I would now like to turn it in. Normally, instead of having an hour-long featured speaker, it's our business meeting. We just don't have time for it because some people get up here and just talk way too much. Dave, take it first.
No, who would that be? All right. Again, my name's Dave. I'm Director of Outreach, and I wanted to talk about getting involved in outreach. And I want to start off, next slide. Why is outreach important? I want to quote out of a book that I found called Astronomy and Astrophysics in the New Millennium. And it kind of really illustrates what I put on the slides, probably better than what I could say. That despite our comparably small size, the astronomical community has the potential to add significantly to the continuing effort to strengthen science education and improve public science literacy. So that's what we do in outreach, really. It's and it goes on to say astronomical concepts and images have a universal appeal. I mean, we all think that looking at these pictures from the Hubble is really cool. We always enjoy the pictures that we have to show. We had one of our biggest audiences at our club meetings ever last month when we showed all the different pictures we had of the solar eclipse. So as these images and the concepts of astronomy have universal appeal, it inspires wonder and resonates uniquely with human questions about our nature and our place in the universe. So, so we have this widespread interest in astronomy that can be tapped, and by tapping into it, we increase our knowledge and understanding on the part of students and the public, and it also eliminates the nature of science as its power and limitations in shaping our future. And by doing this, by doing our outreach that we do, whatever level of outreach that we're doing, the interdisciplinary nature of astronomy, I'll talk more about that, and its links with technology and instrumentation. You know, people are interested in machining new things and all the different things that we do. When we talk about that, we get people interested in it. It puts us in a position to contribute significantly to building a strong technical workforce for the 21st century. So we have a direct impact and influence on our society and our communities on where they go next, as far as where do we as a society go. So that's why outreach is important. So next, basically I wanted to show that there's 3 elements of outreach. There's the scientific content. So what do we do that we want our attendees to know and understand? Next slide. Just keep going through them. I don't want to spend too much time on them. Then we have the scientific process skills. What do we want them to be able to do? So not only do we want to show them the great views in the sky, and that's fine, we can do that. But we also then, especially when we're talking about our younger folks that we have attending, is we want them to be able to use critical thinking and analysis and those sorts of skills that they can then use not only in their science classes and things, but also what they can use in their personal lives. Next slide. And then we have scientific attitudes, and that is, how do we want them to feel about science education? And so those are the things that we do, underlying everything that we do, whether that's bringing a telescope out and showing them something or handing them a flyer. You go learn about the Juno spacecraft or whatever it is. It's all about the content, about processing, their skills of doing science, if you will, and then their scientific attitudes. How do we want them to feel about the science? Next slide. I think I have some pictures. So we have observing. We have the questioning that's using scientific method. A lot of times when I go in to talk to the schools, and then one more click. When we go and talk to the schools, one of the things that the teachers will give me something that they want me to teach the kids. I want you to teach the kids about the phases of the moon. Something very basic, something very simple. I want you to talk about that the moon's at a 5.2 degree tilt and about how the seasons occur. Well, one of the things that I bring to the table when we do these talks and outreach is we want them to also understand, not only, don't just take my word for it, but question it, observe it, go look for yourself. One of the things when we're talking about the sun, there was a thing, did you hear that the world was supposed to end a couple days ago? Yeah, it was on Facebook, so it's got to be true. But it didn't happen. Oh my gosh, and so I actually went to the Planet X website to go see what they were saying and reading some of the commentary on the Facebook page. And there was somebody was saying something about that the sun is rising in a different place in the sky and it's moving, and they were equating it to that it's because there's a planet that's 10 times the size of the Earth is going by us, but we can't see it. Nobody can see it, apparently. So, but it's there because the moon or the sun is rising in different spots in her window. Well, using questioning and analytical thinking and a little bit of experimentation, they could observe over time that the sun is coming up in different spots in the sky because of the tilt of the Earth, and that we're moving around in our orbit around the sun, and so on and so forth. We can go through the whole process of we can use our own eyeballs to observe it, we can question it, we can experiment, we can use analytical thinking, and we can get a result. Just by doing that, hey, I can do my own experimentation at home. When I'm talking to the middle schoolers, the 6th graders think this is really cool. I can actually do this experiment at home. It's easy to do. And so that inspires them to desire to pursue education. It doesn't have to be astronomy. In fact, I looked this up, and it was from 2001. It was something along the lines that there are like 300,000 people or 200,000 students per year that enroll in introductory classes in astronomy in college classes. And then, but there's only a small percentage, like 200 or something, that actually go on to graduate with an astronomy degree. But the astronomy is one of the most accessible sciences that they could go into when they pick a class. Now, sometimes they pick that astronomy class because they think it's the easiest one, and don't realize that there's chemistry and physics and math and all these other interdisciplinary things that they also have to understand as well in those astronomy classes. Introduction into the sciences, that's an easy open door for them to actually go and explore and understand. Those same stars that we see in the sky, and we're used to seeing them, we've gotten comfortable with looking up. A lot of those people have never looked up before. They've never seen those stars that have been in that sky for thousands of millennia, thousands of years before us. Those same stars have been up there in that sky. Maybe a couple of little bit different positions over time, but those same stars have been there. And it's a matter that they just haven't noticed. They haven't noticed that the sun coming up in their window has changed position over 6 months and then back again. And so they see on Facebook, oh, the world's going to end, and oh, this must be why the sun's not in the same position. But we can help with that. We can talk flat Earth, and we can talk, the Nibiru's and stuff, because we've got thousands of astronomers, hundreds of thousands of astronomers all around the world, in every government, in every country, in every geographical location that's looking up at the sky. And we can say, hey, you know what? We're all looking up at the sky. No government is telling us what we have to look at and not look at. So that's all about what we do and how we can inspire others. So next slide, please. So how do we do that? We have different types of outreach that we can do. So let's talk about them. We have the talk. So we had Bruce Book out here, was given a talk on, we gave a bunch of talks at the Pikes Peak Library District libraries. This one was at the Rock Rimmon Library, I believe it was. Or yeah, Rock Rimmon Library, and we're giving a talk about the solar eclipse. And we threw in there about the phases of the moon. And we threw in there about the tilt of 5.2 degrees. And we threw in there a bunch of different things about the archaeoastronomy. This is Bruce. We give archaeoastronomy talks. So, and we had a packed standing room only crowd because the public was interested in astronomy. They're interested in what we have to bring to the table to talk about. Next slide.
And he apologizes for not being here.
He's sick tonight, so. And then we also have the what I call eyeballs behind eyepieces. That we set up our telescopes and we just have it set up so people can come look through the eyepiece at whatever we have pointed at the sky. We'll talk more about that. Next slide. And then we have the going beyond the eyeballs behind the eyepieces. We have the interactivity with the community about not only are what they seeing, but then we can go, some of us, as we build up on our outreach capabilities, we can talk about what are they actually seeing? What is it that is in that eyepiece that they're looking at? And that gives them context. So next slide. So here's how you get involved and make a difference. And it just takes time and commitment. You don't really need a telescope. Get started. You don't need a telescope ever if you don't have one or don't want one. But we need help. The outreach can't be done by just one person. It can't be done, without the volunteers that are in this club that come out at these different activities and do these things. So I've broken it into 4 different levels of outreach. There's the astronomy guide. There's the eyeballs behind eyepieces. There's the eyeballs behind eyepieces with an interactive education. And then there's the hands-on and demonstration. I'm going to talk about each one of those. Next slide. So, and as an astronomy guide, and I've got some volunteers already for Astronomy Day. I can always use some more for this, but astronomy guides are people that don't necessarily have a telescope to bring, don't feel comfortable bringing a telescope to an event, but we can still use your help. And the way that you can help is this. You can guide people to different telescopes. We'll have people out there that are subject matter experts. And when I say that, they might be just a subject matter expert on, here's Saturn. Take a look through my telescope at Saturn. But they might be somebody that's a Pikes Peak Community College, adjunct professor that knows a whole lot about, this and blah, 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 and can tell a whole story about that object. But you can guide people to where, that telescope is looking at Saturn, and this telescope is looking at the moon. This telescope is, what are you on over there? Oh, he's on Alberio. You can point the people to the different object they're looking at. And just that little bit of help gets the people to the different places that the telescopes are set up and show them what they can see. Then you can help hand out our club information and flyers. We have these flyers here. We have some business cards, and this information. We get people to come to star parties, and it might be cloudy or something. They'll say, "When's your next star party?" Or, "This was a great star party. I want to come to your next one too." And we can hand out these flyers. You can help out with handing that stuff out. And we'll also have. As she has a whole boxes and boxes of books, I have boxes and boxes of free stuff from NASA and JPL that I need to give out. And when we give out this stuff, then they send us more stuff to give out. So you can help me give out postcards and bookmarks and flyers and information and all sorts of neat stuff to give away. I have boxes of that stuff that will be given out at Astronomy Day, so I could use some help with that. And then you could even come out and just take pictures of the event. We always need photos of what we do to show people on the activities that we do. I'd really like to start getting photos of our outreach that I could send to NASA and JPL. So NASA and JPL can see, hey, we're getting a lot of people at our events, send us more free stuff. So any of those types of activities help us out.
No flash pictures at night, though.
No flash pictures at night. Or unless you say, hey, I'm going to take a flash picture, and then make sure that's okay with her. Yeah. And then there's, or you could answer questions. We have people always asking us a question, different questions. And off the top of my head, I can't think of one.
How far is Saturn?
How far away is Saturn? Or what else can I look at tonight? Or another common one is, when's the best time to see the Milky Way? They might be simple questions that you can answer, but if you can't answer them, all you got to do is say, Bruce, hey, Bruce, can you answer this question over here? Because you can go to the subject matter experts. A lot of times that's Bruce. And we can answer those questions. You know, and as you come to outreach, you'll figure out real quick who the people are that probably know those answers. And we can get the people that have the questions to talk to the people that need the answers, that have the answers. Next slide, please. So that's astronomy guide. And just kind of, you know, we're working on getting some, this was Roger Kennedy's display at Rocky Mountain Star Stare this year. I'm working on trying to put some displays together like this. Roger just recently had a heart attack, by the way, which is okay. He's going to survive. Not dead yet, he said. But he still has this good humor, so that's a good sign. So best wishes to him. But I was really impressed with what he had set up for his solar astronomy, and we're going to try to do some of the same things. Hopefully by Saturday, even have some of this stuff set up to do. Those displays, we can talk about solar winds, space weather, you know, whatever it is. And if you have any knowledge about those different activities and what's up on the screen, what can I look up in the night sky? We'll have those up, and you can help talk about them as an astronomy guide. Next slide, please. And then there's eyeballs behind eyepieces. And what's required there is just a willingness to share your views and hopefully maybe a telescope that you have. And all you need to do is be able to point your telescope, if you have one, at something. It can be the moon. That's a pretty easy target to find. Maybe it's not for you, though. When I joined the club in 2011, I bought a telescope, and then I didn't even know about the existence of the club, first of all. I bought a telescope, and it's like, okay, I bought a telescope. Now, how do I use it? And I came to the club, and I came to the board, probably the board president, Jim West at the time, and I said, hey, I've got this telescope. Now what do I do with it? How do I learn how to use it? And they said, come to a star party. Okay, that's a common answer. So I brought my telescope to a star party. And I said, okay, here's my telescope. Now what do I do? And they said, go plop yourself down to somebody who knows what they're talking about. Somebody like Bob Bixie over here, or Bruce Bookout, or Fred, Ralph Reed back here in the back. Any of these guys that know what they're talking about. Plot yourself down next to them. Listen to what questions they get asked and what they answer. And now you're building on your knowledge of what you can tell other people. But until you get to that point, just point to Mars, point to Venus, point to Jupiter, whatever is easy for you to be able to point. Because what you're pointing at is something that the people that are coming to look through your telescope and look through that eyepiece is something that they probably have never seen. They've never noticed that that bright object in the evening sky was Venus, and it's actually a crescent shape. Or that that bright object in the sky is Jupiter, and you can see the 4 Galilean moons. Maybe you don't know what those 4 Galilean moons are, what their names are, or what their orbits are. That's okay. We can handle that. Just bring a telescope and show them this object. They show Saturn. We're going to talk Saturn at RMSS now this next year. You see Saturn, and they see Saturn's rings. Where's that picture of Saturn? That beautiful picture. They're going to see this, and they're going to look through your telescope, and besides the wow, oh my gosh, which is a good sign that they're able to see, because sometimes the little kids will look through the telescope, and the moms and dads will say, do you see it? Yeah. And they go, yeah. And then it's not even in the view, and you look through and you get it in the view, and they say, oh, wow. And they look and they say, that can't be real. That must be painted on.
Where's the picture?
I don't see where the picture is on the end of your telescope, because that can't be real when I'm looking through the telescope. They've never seen it before. They didn't realize. A lot of people will say, another comment is, I didn't know that you could see these objects through a telescope from Earth. Go up there with Cassini or Hubble or something like that, and we have these telescopes that can see these things. So come out with your telescope and just support us by pointing at something. Point at Alberio, a beautiful double star, Mizar and Alcor in the handle of the Big Dipper. Now I'm going to go back a second on what I was saying about when I was getting involved in astronomy. I didn't know any of these names. I didn't know Mizar from, Chirac or, Regulus, or, I heard of Regulus, I think was on Star Trek or something. I knew
Camelopardalus.
Camelopardalus. I'm still working on my knowledge base, but I didn't know any of those. So it's like, what do I do? Well, point at the moon. You stick on the moon, and we'll point to the other more complex, more difficult objects. But you got the moon, and everybody, guess what? Everybody loves to look at the moon. Everybody's going to be lining up your telescope to look at that. But as I plopped myself down next to somebody that was an expert, pretty soon I was not just pointing at the moon, I was then pointing at Jupiter. And then the next time I came out, I was pointing at Saturn. And then I was back to Jupiter or the moon again. But as I progressed over time, I built up my knowledge base, or what I call a repertoire of different stars and objects that I could point my telescope at. So, and maybe you don't know, say you want to point your telescope at the Dumbbell Nebula. This even happened to me this year. I wasn't very practiced on pointing my telescope manually at the Dumbbell Nebula. And I'm not ashamed to say, hey, Bruce, can you help me point to the Dumbbell Nebula? And he's like, yeah, and he'll point with the green laser pointer. It's like right there. And then I practice it, and then I'm able to do that. So one of the benefits that you're going to get out of coming to do outreach, it gives you practice. It gives you an excuse to get out of the house when, you might want to stay at home and watch, the latest episode of Big Bang Theory or whatever, reruns, I guess. I don't know, it's still on, right? So, and then young Sheldon after that, instead of sitting in front of the TV and watching, get out and get under the stars. And if you have a reason to go, now you have an excuse. Now you motivate. And that's what I've done. I'm only speaking to myself in that it's motivated me to get out. And by getting out and underneath the stars and forcing myself to manually find these objects in the skies, built my repertoire on being able to find these objects without looking at a star map, without looking at, doing the go-to, computerized setups. Those are okay too. I'm not diminishing that at all. Bring that if you have it. But it's built up. It's something that's a benefit to you that you'll get out of doing outreach. But it then, as I mentioned before, benefits everybody else in our whole community. Next slide. I think, so there's an example of that. On this night, it was a Boy Scout Jamboree out in Calhan. It turned out being cloudy. We could just barely see the moon through the clouds. But even when it's cloudy, we could we could show these kids, we put our telescope on the object, and then they look through the telescope. One of the things that I want to mention about eyeballs behind eyepieces is generally what we do, and this is we do this more when we have large crowds of 500, 600 people. We don't really have time for them to do anything more than telescopes already set up to view an object, and they come through and they look through without touching the telescope. That's one of the things we try to tell them not to do most of the time, is just look with their eyes, don't touch the telescope, and they can enjoy what they're seeing. And that's eyeballs behind eyepieces. That's the only interaction that they have, is looking at the object they're looking at and moving on, next person. Looking with that, moving on. But we all try to throw in, as you develop your skill set and being able to talk about these different objects, we do try to talk about the different objects as well. Next slide. So that's the interactive experience. So EBE with interactive education. So what's required there? It's the same as just looking at the telescope with your eyeball, or looking at the object without touching the telescope. But then what you do is you add an element of being able to talk to people about what they're seeing. So say you're looking at Jupiter, and what knowledge do you have about Jupiter? Anybody? Give me some knowledge that you have about Jupiter.
7 moons.
57 moons. 60 megahertz for the sound of radio astronomy. So there's 4 moons that we could see with our telescope. It's Io, Ganymede, Callisto, and Europa. You might know a little bit about that. The Europa Clipper is a mission that's currently being planned. That it's Europa has an icy outer with a Greenfield Center, I like to say. We're gonna go and try to see if there's life there. And, there was like a movie, Europa, I think was a movie about space whales or something. So it doesn't really matter what it is that you tell the folks that they're looking at. Anything that you tell them about gives them context to what they're looking at. Hopefully you have some science knowledge that, it's about 500 million miles away, that if you travel light speed, it takes, when it's at opposition, 42 minutes and light travel to get there. You could equate that in impulse power or light warp speed in Star Trek terms if you want. Again, it gives them context. It's something they're familiar with that now they have something to relate. You might maybe the different Greek mythologies, and you could talk about who Callisto was, or Europa, or Jupiter's as a king relation. So. Not my area, but everybody has their own unique skill sets that you might be looking at Jupiter and another telescope might be looking at Jupiter, and they're going to hear different things from different people, different little fact sets that you have to help them out. So I already mentioned about if you don't know what you're looking at, place yourself next to somebody. Build that repertoire, build that knowledge set. I can't say, to be honest, that I've learned everything by putting myself next to Jim West or to Bob or to Bruce Bookout or any of these guys. That not only have I got my knowledge and information about what things to talk about from those gentlemen, but that I've also gone home then and I've looked things up in different books that I have and listened to podcasts and I try to build a repertoire that I specifically want to know that when somebody looks at Alberio, they want to know how far away it is. Oh, it's 420 light years away. It's about 42 AU separation between the two stars. They want to know little factoids about that. So if I don't know the answer to it, I don't know the answer to that. But I'm going to go home then that night and look it up. The next time I get asked that same question again, I know the next time. So you can build that skill set. That not only helps the public and that education and interest that we went back to at the very beginning and the knowledge of what it is that you're trying to tell them, but it also gives you the benefit that you're learning something about what it is. It gives you context as well. So so just consider that. So learn a little something to talk about whatever object you plan to show. If you want to come out and you don't want to do any of that and you just want to bring your telescope out and point it to Jupiter or to Saturn or whatever the object is, and that's all you want to do with outreach, great, come out. We need your help, even if that's it. But if you can do this next piece, which is the interactive education, I can guarantee you something, and that is that there's going to be at least one individual that comes in and looks through your telescope that's going to always, always, always remember that. I remember when I first looked through telescopes, when I was a kid, I remember every circumstance where somebody said, hey, come and look through my telescope. I remember those things. And you're going to have people like that too, that have never seen Saturn before, that have never seen Alberio and saw that the stars have different colors in their makeup. So so it helps all of us, again, if you do outreach with us. We have actually, in doing our outreach, we have a very young, is he 13 now, Eric White?
13.
Eric White comes out with his telescope with his dad supervising. He comes out with his telescope and he's doing exactly this. He started with one object, now he's got a couple, and he's wanting to be as smart as Bruce. And it's like, how do I do this? How do I get to know all of these objects and be able to point at the sky like you? And it's what I just told you, and what Bruce tells people as well, is that start with one and then just build on and build that knowledge list until you have a whole bunch of objects that you know where these things are and you can go point to them. And people will ask you, it's amazing, how are you able to point to these objects in the sky? Well, it's like playing a guitar or playing a piano. It takes practice and you get out there. And one of the things that I've noticed is muscle memory. Because on my manual telescope, the sky moves 15 degrees. You can talk about that. The sky moves 15 degrees per hour across the sky, because of our rotation of our Earth. Well, as it's moving, it makes the object move out of my eyepiece constantly. So about every first or second person, I have to go down there and move my telescope. Well, when I first started doing that, I couldn't figure out which way I needed to move my telescope because it's upside down and reverse on the Dobsonian. And but over time, as I practice, I now know exactly which direction I need to move my telescope, and I know how much I need to move my telescope. And that's practice. That's just doing it over and over and over again, night after night, 140 hours this year so far. So, but it's that practice that makes you able to do these things. And again, it benefits you when you go out on your own with friends and you want to look at the night sky. I'm not doing a night about maybe. Next slide. And you do, I should mention on the last bullet down there, it said review periodically, you have to refresh. The sky changes. What we're looking at in the sky tonight isn't the sky that we had 6 months ago. So you're going to have different objects. You're going to have to learn new objects as you go from one time frame to another. There's different objects you have to build in your list. And then you're going to have to learn new things. So you'll forget about where the Dumbbell Nebula is over the year. And then next year when it comes around again, you have to refresh and remember what are those little facts. Because you're not going to remember all those little factoids that you want to tell people and get them interested in. So this is just a graphic. Again, these are all pictures off of our Facebook of our different outreach that we did. This was at a Comic-Con event where a Galaxy Fest, I think that somebody is talking to him about what it's looking through the telescope. Eyeballs behind eyepieces, but then the interactive experience of give them context of what they're looking at. Next slide, please. So then there's a hands-on demonstration. What's required? One of the elements that you can do is this doesn't work with large crowds. This is a small crowd thing that if you have a Dobsonian telescope, you could actually hand over control of your telescope to somebody that is very interested in, I want to learn how to work this telescope. If you don't have a long line of people and you have a young student that's really interested, you can say, hey, you can point it at the moon. And you can show them how to actually move the telescope, point it at the moon, and get that experience. That is something that they're going to remember forever. And they're going to come, if they ever come to another star party, they're going to come to you and say, hey, can I move the telescope again? I did an outreach event a couple of months ago for Rainbow Order of Girls. Whatever that is, I have no idea. But this Rainbow Order of Girls, well, I'll tell you two pieces of this story. First of all, the Rainbow Order of Girls is, I don't know, it's like some Masonic temple type thing, whatever. I don't get into any of that. They wanted a star party instead of a dance, okay? And it was the 16-year-old girl was getting coronated as a queen, and it was up to her what she wanted to have as her after coronation activity. She wanted a star party. So they called us and said, hey, can you guys come down and have a star party with us? So I said, sure, absolutely, we'll do that. We came down, we set up our telescopes, and we were looking at the sky. And I asked the girls in the evening, you know, hey, how do you like this? And they're like, oh, it's way better than a dance. We have to dance with boys, you know. They thought it was cool. The science was cool, and we were able to show them, you know, this fun. But there was one little, you know, a sister of one of the girls was like 8 years old, and she really wanted to move the telescope, not just eyeballs behind eyepieces or even eyeballs behind eyepieces with interactive. But she wanted to actually run that telescope. And the moon was up there in the sky, easy object for her to find. Jupiter was up too. And it was like, here you go. I showed her how to do it. And she was able to find that object, and she knew that every couple of minutes it had to be readjusted and put back into place. And she did that a couple of times, and then they all went away, and I didn't have anybody looking through my telescope for a while. They were doing s'mores and other things, enjoying the nice evening that we had. She came running back to me a little bit later, and she said, oh, and if you need me to point the telescope for you, let me know. I'm right over here under the tree. So that girl's always going to remember that she got how to move that telescope, and probably going to want to do that again when it comes her time to have a star party. So so that's kind of hand over control. Can't do it all the time, but when it's opportune, you can do that. Another thing that you can do is you can do handouts. Back to the Astro Guide, I have handouts that what we do is this one's the moon, if the moon is visible, and it has all the Apollo landing sites. And you can give this to a student and have them go find where the different Apollo landing locations are. You might have to explain why we can't see, the flag on the moon or whatever, but that gives them an interactive experience, to do that. Another hands-on, we did this a lot at the for the solar eclipse events. I'm doing all right on time, I think. You can put up this yardstick, and you can talk that the Earth here is 8,000 miles in diameter, and the Moon is 2,000 miles in diameter, 4 times smaller. And they happen to be, in this scale, if the diameter of the Earth is 1 inch, and we're 30 times the diameter to the Moon. So you could put that on a yardstick, it's 30 inches. And then you can shine a light, just one of many, and when you shine the light, you can show how the shadow goes across for creating a lunar eclipse, or the other way around. And sorry that my little yardstick likes to bend on me. You can do the little demonstration of I got to get it just right, but this works better in the sun. But you can do the little shadows just showing the solar eclipse. So just a real quick little demonstration that you can do and show them about how it works that we have solar and lunar eclipses. Demo, done, hands-on. You can give a talk about a constellation walkthrough. There's only a few of the club members that are really good at doing these talks and constellation walkthroughs, but we're building the repertoire. We've got an individual that just joined the club about 6 months ago, a little longer maybe, Stephen White. He's come to me and he says, hey, I want to be able to give the talks. I want to be able to do the things that when we go into Florissant fossil beds and we give a presentation, we talk about the club. He wants to be able to do those things. Like, great. In fact, I was sick. I had a cold a couple of weeks ago when we had an event at Florissant. And Bruce was teaching class that night, wasn't able to attend either. So Bruce and I were both out. And we're kind of the ones that do them most of the time. And I wrote to Steve, and Steve White, and I said, Steven, it's you, you're it. Go do it. And he gave the talk. And in fact, he gave it twice because they had like 12 people, but they started too early, and then other people showed up, and he had to do it again. So he got practice. He got to do it twice. And that practice thing now, that ability to do that gives us confidence. He'll do it again and again and build it up and be able to do more of those talks coming on. And then I talked a little bit about giving talks in the schools. I take a certain amount of time off per year from my work so that I can go into the various schools that we have and supplement the teachers and the education that they give. And I want to talk about that here in just a second. Next slide. So there's an example of a talk. This was Banning Lewis Ranch Academy. Great group of kids out here. And we had a lot of fun. We had all our different telescopes out there. A little cold as we were getting into the end of spring. Next slide. And still in the spring. And then we have the talks that we give at the public star parties. This one at Palmer Park. I think our good Al Bidlack was giving that talk to a big group of people. Again, it wasn't dark yet, but we can give talks about the night skies even when it's cloudy. Even when the weather isn't the greatest, we can still talk about, well, if it wasn't dark, if it wasn't cloudy, Venus would be right there and Saturn's right there. And so when it clears up and you see those objects, now you know what it is that you're looking at. We can talk some of those things, even if it's not a good night for observing with the telescope. Next slide. And then another demonstration that we have done in the past is not an eyeball behind an eyepiece, but we take a ping pong ball on an end of a kebab skewer, and we have a solar filter on this telescope right here. And then we show that when you take the solar filter, protects your eye so you can look safely at the sun. But then 4 minutes, okay. But then when you take that solar filter off and you have that ping pong ball where your eyeball would be, in a matter of seconds, that goes on, it catches fire. So real quick, simple, easy demonstration about sun safety and looking in your proper use of solar filters. So let me look real quick on what else I got. Okay, next slide. So what's the impact? To the public, we have the potential to change lives, inspire education, observation, analytic, and critical thinking skills. And then to you, you have an excuse to go out and practice. You can go learn the sky like no other, means of just whenever you want. You're going to get out there a lot, and you're going to get to see, stuff that you haven't seen before, and learn from other people. Make friends with the different members of this club. We got a great bunch of people that come and do outreach and enjoy each other's company. I hope at least to some degree I enjoy theirs. So some. And you're going to build the knowledge of what you're looking at that's going to expand the enjoyment of your hobby. I want to throw out one more thing here that I got out of this same book, Astronomy and Astrophysics in the New Millennium. It was written in 2001, but it still applies. And it says this: one of the most important college audiences that can be reached with introductory astronomy classes, and I would argue high school kids and maybe even the middle school kids could apply here as well. But the most important group that we can reach is America's future elementary and high school teachers. These are the people who will soon be teaching science to the nation's children, and their experience with science in college is of paramount concern. Indeed, it is only by working closely with this audience that we can expect to achieve long-term systemic reform in K-12 science education. So you can have a direct impact, not only in your local school system, but by all of us across the country doing this outreach and supporting the interest in science education and the interdisciplinary elements that astronomy provides to building that interest. We benefit the whole country and the world by making this country what it's all about, and making us one of the preeminent countries as far as science and education goes. So, next slide. I think that's it. So outreach is fun. Get involved in outreach and make a difference. This was Eric was tasked to be inside at one of our library events and talk about his telescope and about how he uses it to look at the night sky. We had a couple other telescopes that were looking at a cloudy Colorado Springs light polluted sky to show people out there. But it's a lot of fun. It's something that it doesn't matter what your age, really, you can get involved in doing this stuff. And we really appreciate any support that you can provide. And as you saw, it can provide you benefits, and it can provide the rest of our community benefits as well. You make a difference. Next slide. So I can be reached at outreach@csastro.org. You can look at our events that's coming up on our calendar. We also will post in the forums, and if you want to get really involved, we can put you on the outreach mailing list where I try to keep people updated on upcoming events and where we need different telescopes and people supporting outreach. So I appreciate everybody that's come out in this last year and supported outreach. We continue to do great things in our community. We make our club money, revenue. That's another thing I didn't mention, and it's a great, fun thing to do. That's why I'm Director of Outreach. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. So that's it. We're out of time. First of all, thank you to our Space Foundation hosts for hosting us at our meeting here again this month. And so I hope you all had a good time, and we'll see you again next month. All right. So, what? No, not. No. Don't put me on the spot. Yeah, so, anyway, thank you. See you again next month. Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Do we need help putting